Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the St. Louis podcast. I'm your glorious host today, Eric Brown, president of iMedia and partner at Mogul Holdings. Today, we got Brandon Barnum on the St. Louis podcast, and we're going to get into the weeds with him and his business. But before we do, as always, this is St. Louis podcast each and every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time, if we're on time. We drop an episode on all major podcasting, audio, and video platforms where we meet with the most badass people and creators, talk about business, entrepreneurship, and current events. Let's jump into it. Brandon, how you doing today?
Bless beyond belief, brother.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on. We're going to have some good conversation here today. Again, we got Brandon Barnum, King of Referrals, CEO of HOA.com, best-selling author of Raving Referrals book series, 10x his own income from 20,000 to 200,000 in 18 months as a single dad, which we'll get into here right in 1 second. Former CEO of Codebreaker Technologies, featured in Wall Street Journal, Newsweek, and Cracking the Millionaire Code. Brandon, glad to have you on. So the first thing, let's talk about the origin. Let's talk about the beginning, the story of your 20 to 200,000 in 18 months as a single dad. So take me back to that. What was going on in that time, and what did you do? Right? What
Yeah.
difference did you make to make that happen?
Yeah, it started a little before that. Back in college, I found out you don't have to be married to have a kid. And
Hmm.
so at 22, I had a son, and at 24, I was a single dad. And I was making 20 grand a year, as you said. And I had to make a change because I wasn't making enough money to pay for my mortgage and for daycare. So I ended up getting in the mortgage business. And I had somebody that mentored me and taught me the art and science of what I now call raving referrals. And I was able to build partnerships with other people that were serving my perfect prospects every day. And within 18 months, I was able to 10x my income from 20,000 a year to $200,000 a year. And ever since then, I've been on a mission to help as many other people do that as possible.
So what exactly did you implement in order to do that? Did you get with referral partners? Obviously, a lot of the time in the mortgage industry, you're going to be trying to. What I always find, so of course, we own a marketing agency, and we did in the past a lot of like real estate and mortgage loan officers. We always found that it's interesting that the realtor, for some reason, holds a lot of the power in that relationship, if you will, because
Yeah.
for some reason, instead of a person getting a home, going to get approved, right? Or at least pre-approved for a mortgage to see how that's going to lay it out, they go to a real estate agent first, which is, I've always said since the beginning of, we've really been doing this. It's like, that's the wrong way to go about doing it. But
Yeah.
it's tough. So anyway, so what were some of the strategies that you implemented to find those people?
Well, to your point, they don't want a loan, they want a home. So
Yep.
that's why they go to the real estate agents. And what I did when I got started is I went out and I interviewed a bunch of top producing real estate agents. I said, what matters to you, right? In order for me to win your business, what do I have to deliver to you? And what they said is, we want more business. And,
Hmm.
realtors give a ton of referrals out. They don't get many back. Like you say, they're in that power position because they have clients that come to them for everything. Do you know a guy who,
Yep.
right? And so they're able to refer a lot of business to a lot of people. But a lot of realtors are underappreciated and overworked, and they don't feel like they have people that are in partnership with them. So that's really what I learned early on is how to be a great partner to a real estate agent, to a financial advisor, an insurance agent, an attorney, an accountant, or a contractor that served homeowners, because these people are out there every day serving my perfect prospects back when I was in this business, right?
Hmm.
If you're listening right now, you either probably serve homeowners slash consumers, or you serve business owners, right? You're B2B or you're B2C, one of the two. And if you focus on identifying who are all the other people in that ecosystem that are serving your perfect prospects every day, and you look at how do you solve the challenges that their clients face, then you become the natural solution that they recommend. And so that's what I did, as I went and I really added as much value as I could. Now, what I did back in, this is 1997, so a lot of people that listening may not have even been born back then, but I created an early version of Zillow.
Hmm.
Back then,
Okay.
you couldn't find real estate listings online. If there was a listing, it had one exterior photo of a house, and that was it.
Yep.
And I said, this is silly. I'd just come out of marketing school, business school, and I knew that in the future we'd be able to sit in our underwear on our couch and shop real estate. And
Hmm.
so that's what I did. And it was early and it was dial up and it was slow. So it took like 5 minutes for an entire listing to load, but it was much better than having to drive 45 minutes across town to see the house. So I started featuring listings of the realtors that I wanted to win business with. I would give to them first. And
Hmm.
as a result, they gave to me for years to come.
I love that. Yeah, finding people, other business owners that sell to the same people that you're selling to that also provide good service and things like that are super instrumental in helping grow your business. Because one thing, I've always said, like, video. So we do, of course, SEO and Google ads and design websites at Vibe Media and things like that. The biggest thing we always saw when it comes to, like, really the content creation side, right?
Mm.
And when it comes to video production companies, the biggest thing I always found with video production companies, and I said this for years until I found some good referral partners in that avenue, is you guys are selling a product with essentially not giving them the blueprint in order to distribute it, right? So you're creating a video, but what is the business owner supposed to do after that video is created? Also, you're relying on one-off projects instead of creating a video strategy with the company to do that on a consistent basis, if that's monthly or whatever it is. And I said this, I'm not joking, to I don't know, probably 25, 30 different video production companies here around the St. Louis area until I finally were able to partner with those ones that kind of had that strategy built out. They just needed a marketing agency to come in and fulfill with essentially their strategy and be able to distribute that content. But being able to find those type of companies that are going to be able to work with you is super beneficial. Now, I'm curious when it comes to, obviously you have those business owners that you can get with, and like one group, and I'm sure that you're well aware of, like a BNI, right? Business Networking
Yeah,
International.
yeah.
Um, there are a ton of different groups like that. And I joined BNI like 6 years ago. So I was, fairly new in business. It was like my first networking opportunity. And it was really where I was able to see, you know, by being in this room of, these different business owners, who is going to be like the person that you can be introduced to or talk to that is not only going to be able to give you one referral, right? But going to be able to give you consistent referrals on a consistent basis. And I think that's what you're talking about where it comes to real estate and financial advisors and things like that. It's not one off, right? It's a continued relationship with that person. So I just found that interesting. So, okay. So we got the 20 to $200,000. So what was kind of your next step after that?
Well, it was really featuring those real estate agents, right? I started going to them, building long-term partnerships. And what happened was I got started in May of 1997. And by the end of 1998, I had made 200 grand. And I looked at all my transactions and I audited where every deal came from. And a
Yep.
lot of people don't track their referrals. We teach the referral score quiz, and you can go to referralscorequiz.com. It's 10 different referral best practices, and you self-rate yourself from 0 to 10. And one of them is to track the referrals, not only that you receive, but also that you give. So you know all the referral activity that's happening in your business. And what I found was that out of that 200,000, $50,000 in commissions came from just one real estate agent named
Hmm.
Dana Berry. So then I started doubling down. I reinvested and I started running co-marketing advertising campaigns with her
Yep.
because I knew that if we got a client together, she was referring every client to me. And so, that's really part of what you've got to do is track and identify and measure your business and understand where your business is really coming from. And I recommend when people create partnerships, first you identify who else is serving that ideal client that I want to serve.
Hmm.
And then secondly, who am I already giving referrals to in that industry that I could go to that person and formalize a referral partnership? And so it sounds like this. I'll just call them up and say, hey, Eric, I see that you serve a lot of the clients that I serve, and I realize I can send you a lot of business. So I'd like to sit down with you and talk about building our businesses together and formalizing our referral partnership. Is that something you'd be interested in? And everybody says yes to that,
Yep.
right? I mean, if
Yep.
you got that call, what do you say?
Yep. I'm saying yes. Majority of the time, I would
100%,
say yes, absolutely.
right? And have you ever gotten that call?
I get them occasionally, but
Yeah.
the problem is I find is that I get the LinkedIn messages and shit, but
Oh,
it's
yeah. Yeah.
it's never really personalized. To be honest, I don't, obviously Facebook DMs, I guess people here locally, but
Sure.
no, I don't get a lot of those calls. No.
Well, and I'm not talking about calls from strangers, right?
Yeah.
Because we all get those LinkedIn spam or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, right? But I'm talking about people that you actually have a relationship with, somebody that you've known for years and you've done business with them, but you've never sat down and said, let's create a plan of action where a
Mhm.
client for you becomes well, the way we say it, a client for me becomes a client for you, right? So that you're giving. And in that conversation, what happens is what you're going to find is that people are super open to it, especially if they've already done business with you. If they've referred clients to you and you've created a 5-star experience for their clients, they're in position to send you a lot more business.
Yep.
But you got to ask. And a lot of people don't ask. So we start first and foremost with the people that you've been giving referrals to. Number two, who are you receiving referrals from? And you want to double, triple, or 10x the number of referrals that you receive from that person. And then number three, when you make a list of all the industries that are serving your perfect prospects every day, there's probably a lot of people in your phone that you've
Mhm.
known for years, maybe even decades, that serve that clientele that you've never approached and said, hey, let's team up. Let's build our businesses together. And when you do that, it's amazing. We teach 1 + 1 = 11,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
it's the leverage factor. I'm meeting right after this with a company. I love doing partnerships, just like we're talking about here.
Mhm.
So we've got a real estate SaaS platform that 1 week from today is promoting our new certified HOA specialist course and designation to their community of 670,000 real estate agents.
Very nice.
Right. So that's the power of 1 + 1 = 11. In that case, I think it's 111 or maybe even more than that. But that's what you want to look for. Who's serving your perfect prospects every day? And how do you add value to them so they want to promote you to everyone they serve?
So, 2 questions. Number 1, do you do you actually formalize it in terms of an agreement, or is it more of a handshake? Number 2, what do you think about referral partners? In the mortgage space, it's a little bit more difficult, right? With
Right.
referral fees or paying commission back to those people.
Sure.
What do
Yeah.
you think about those 2 things?
Yeah, so the latter, what you're talking about is what I call it referral rewards.
Mhm.
And the jury's kind of split. Like half of the people that I talk to get excited about earning commissions or mailbox money. The other half don't want it at all. They just want to give. They don't feel uncomfortable receiving compensation. And so in that case, I say no problem. How about if I make a donation to your favorite charity instead of paying you cash? Or you
Mm,
set it up
that's
where,
good.
hey, if you're not comfortable receiving commission, I'd be happy to provide a special promo code or a gift certificate to your clients to lower the cost for them, if that's something that you feel you need to do. You don't have to offer that at all, but those are some ways to do it. On the referral reward side, I think one of the best ways to motivate is to compensate. But
Yep.
again, you have to have the right partner that feels that way, that is happy to be compensated. And as you mentioned, you got to be careful about the regulatory issues.
Yeah.
There's certain industries where you have to have a license to receive referrals, like real estate, insurance, finance, mortgage. And in those industries, you can't incentivize, you can't pay people. So there, what you want to do is take some of the money that you earn and invest in a co-marketing campaign with
Mhm.
them and say, hey, how about instead of paying you, how about I invest some of my advertising dollars in campaigns with you where I lower the cost and promote you to a wider audience? How does that sound to you?
I mean, it sounds good to me.
Well, yeah, you run a marketing agency, right? Come on, let's increase the ad
Exactly.
spend.
Exactly. No, that's yeah, so what's interesting is so we again, where we kind of originally started with marketing before we ever started the marketing company was in mortgage and real estate. And back
Mhm.
then, so this would have been back then, it's not even that long ago, 9
Yeah.
years ago or 10 years ago, co-marketing was huge because
Mm,
really the 2 things that people were stuck on with was like Zillow and being like the main agent, right, or whatever on the listings.
right?
But other than that, it's hard. It's really hard for a loan originator to market themselves. It's very difficult. So, my big thing was always like, if you are able to come in and essentially pay for, let's just say all of it, for the real estate agent for a month or two,
Right.
obviously the biggest thing I say and what you said earlier is like, if you're not measuring your results in your business, and same thing with marketing, you're, you don't know how well you're doing, right? You don't know what you don't know. So, I think that's hugely important. So that's interesting. Okay. Okay. So when it
Well,
comes,
and here's the thing,
yeah.
there's some stats about referrals real quick. If you're
Mhm.
in business to business sales, 84% of B2B sales start with a referral.
Yeah.
So if you're selling to business owners, you need to be working by referral because that gets you that private entry, that VIP treatment. The only reason I'm doing a partnership with the company I am is because one of their executives that I sort of met at an event introduced me to the CEO. I like going to the top rather than starting at the bottom,
Yep.
right? So when you're doing B2B sales, you got to be working by referral. And even if you're serving consumers slash homeowners, people are 400% more likely to hire you if you are referred to them by somebody that they know because there's a trust transfer that takes place. And
Mhm.
so they feel like we don't want to shop. We just want the best deal we can find. We want the best service possible. And if somebody says, oh, you got to call Eric, he's going to take care of you, then guess what? I'm not going to go search and get bids from other marketing agencies. If I meet with you and feel like you're going to be able to deliver the result I'm after, game over and game on and game over, really.
Yeah. That's we've really leveraged, our clients, I think are one of our best referral sources at Vi. And the only reason is because we do a damn good job with our clients. And there's a lot of marketing companies that don't. It's kind of a good space to be in if you actually provide a good service because there are, a ton of people, you're new, you sit behind a laptop and you're just by yourself trying to run a marketing agency, or you've been doing print and newspaper forever, and then you try and start a digital marketing agency, or you're just one of the companies that don't care about the end result of the business, which there's plenty of those as well. As long as they're getting paid and they have a contract on a monthly basis, they could care less about how well that's actually performing for the business owner. But yeah, our clients are our biggest referral partners. And one thing we do with our clients, and some of them take it and some of them don't, it's like, hey, if you send us people, and we work with them, we could do one essentially of three things. I'll lower your bill on a monthly basis. I can just send you a check on a monthly basis. And one thing you brought up that I haven't said in forever, and someone actually gave me that idea a couple years ago because someone was like, they don't, they won't, I'm not going to accept any money from you for this, was donating to a charity. And I'm so glad you brought that up because that is an amazing idea, number one. And number two, I mean, it's a great thing to do, right? So, you kind of kill two birds with one stone there. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but that's something I really need to bring back is having that option to do so. Um,
Well, and it's important for a couple of reasons. One is now you're tapping into cause related marketing.
mhm.
84% of consumers say they care about what you are doing to make the world a better place, to impact our local community. So now, if you tie a charity or cause into it, your stock rises even deeper, right? Now you've got their heart, especially if it's their passion, right? Like to me, I'm a big brother. And I'm not only a big brother, I'm also an ambassador for Big Brother. So yesterday I went to Big Brothers here in Phoenix and I shot video for them, right? And they called me yesterday and said, hey, will you do this NFL draft day? I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah,
I'll
that'd
go
be
hang out
good.
with some NFL players and rep Big Brothers. But last night I was with my little, right? And he's not so little, he's 17. He's a junior in high school. And he reached out and he said, hey, I've got my prom coming up and I don't know what to do, right? So I got to take him to dinner last night and talk him through his prom proposal and taking his date out. And so, I love to tell that story. Now, I love to tell that story because it's what lights my fire and inspires me, but I also know it resonates with other people. And when they care more about you and your business, when you show you care about your community.
Yeah, Big Brother's an amazing organization. Every time I hear it, though, I think of what's that movie? that
Oh, 1984, Big Brother. Yeah.
no, 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 not
No?
that Big Brother.
Okay.
The it's a comedy movie with Paul Rudd. Uh, oh my God, it doesn't
I'm
matter.
not sure, bro. I'm not sure. But find a charity or cause that you're passionate about. Integrate that into your story that you're telling about your business. What you're going to find is not only are your clients and customers going to get excited about it, so is your team. Right? When you elevate your leadership game and you show that your company is more about profits, it's about people before profits,
Hmm.
it changes the game because, again, we're not in our head, we're in our heart. And that's where you want to be in business because that's what creates loyalty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance.
Hmm.
If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmer's insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Vi Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes, it would.
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast. So, all right. So let's talk about let's get into. I'm just curious. I know we weren't going to talk about HOA too much, but I want to get your input on how HOA.com is going to alleviate a lot of what homeowners feel.
Yeah.
It feels like more and more so. Like there's so many hate HOA like groups online and like things like that. How
Right.
is HOA.com? How is it going to alleviate some of that pressure, not only from the HOA organization itself, but also for the homeowners and obviously anyone else servicing that area?
Yeah, so great question, and it's a big answer. First of all, you can go to HOA.com, download our white paper, The Future of Community, and that's where we cast the vision for what does community really look like in the future. And we're committed to creating that world that we want to live in. And it's about unity through community, and we're doing that in a few different ways. First of all, we're bringing AI to HOAs. And what we're doing is helping to alleviate the biggest complaints I hear when I introduce myself as CEO of HOA.com. It's people say, oh my gosh, I hate my HOA.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know, right? And the biggest thing is transparency. They feel like they pay a lot of money into their HOA. They're not sure where the money goes.
Yeah.
Number two is communication. They don't know what's going on in their community and they feel like they're under communicated with. And then also the politics and the policing. On the politics side, they feel like their board member has an ego trip and he's got his little kingdom that he thinks he runs when it's really the community for all. And then the policies, sometimes the policing, sometimes the rules are enforced selectively and they should just be even for everyone. So those are the complaints that we hear. So how are we solving that? In a few different ways. Again, we're using AI to optimize how an HOA board is run in the community management company, because much of what they do can be automated, right? All of the budgeting, the architectural review process, the minutes from the meeting, and creating them the meetings on Zoom so everyone has access, where the meetings are recorded, transcribed, and published for everyone to see. So if they have questions, they've got access to the information. And then when it comes to the homeowners, part of what we do here is we create community events. So we have 100 different community impact events. And 10 days ago, I was at a community kickball tournament that one of our communities did, right?
Nice.
And there's
Yeah.
about 75 people there. It was so cool, man, because the kids are playing kickball, the dads are playing cornhole, the moms are just listening to music, dancing, having a good time, watching the boys in their lives play and talking to other women. And the coolest part was, I looked around at one point at every single person in the park, 75 people, not one person was on their cell phone.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how we change community. We actually help you get to know your neighbor. You've heard of Match.com for dating. We're working on Friend Match, where we connect people in the community to other people that have the same values, interests, and hobbies. So what if you had more friends? And what if they live next door or down the street, and you could raise your kids together in a community that you love? Then you'll love your HOA. That's the mission we're on.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. One thing I remember when, growing up in my neighborhood is we used to have like at least a yearly party, right? Up at
Yeah.
the
Block
pool.
party?
Up at the pool. Yep.
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
would go.
Come on.
I don't think they've had it for a long time though. Like
Silly. And think about it from
like
a
10
business
years.
perspective,
Yeah.
right? If you're the leader and you're the community champion helping to host that, now every single person that's coming through the door, you're greeting them and they're like, thank you so much, Eric, for putting on this party.
It's I really do feel like we are continuing to lose community on a daily basis right now because everyone sits inside on their phone. And I talk to people my age that have recently bought a house in, say, the past year or two, and a lot of them don't even know all of their neighbors. Like the person that lives right next door. And I'm like, that's insane to me. I
Right.
don't understand it. I can't wrap my head. I'm like, how do you not know? At least go say hi, knock on the door. It's not weird. You live right next to the person. You should know them fairly well. Like, I just think of like growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, running around all of the neighborhoods that we were in, knowing a lot of the people, the adults, even if they didn't have kids, like knowing who lived in the neighborhood. It's not the same anymore. And I'm glad to hear that is trying to come back because it's huge. And the friend match thing is interesting.
Right.
Um, I I definitely see where there could be a huge need for that.
Mm.
Uh, get rid of the dating aspect, get rid of that whole side of things, and just have I just try to make it not swipe right and swipe left somehow because that's just
How about
associated with.
thumbs up?
There we go, thumbs up, thumbs down, yeah. But, that's great, like, having values on there. What do you think about things? And being able to be like, "Hey, this seems like a person. Hey, holy shit, they're, 10, 15 houses down. This is great," which is so how would you compare that to kinda Nextdoor, I guess? Because I hate Nextdoor just seems like a bitch fest. That's all it seems like to
Yeah.
me.
What if Nextdoor had no complaining?
I love that.
Right.
There'd be no Nextdoor.
Well, yeah. So our AI is named Karen. What I didn't share with you is, so we take phone calls. We've taken over 10,000 phone calls so far. Our AI knows all the CCNRs, the bylaws, all the rules and regulations. It knows everything about the community. And so we're able to answer questions from homeowners quickly, which normally those go to voicemail, or to an email that
Voice
doesn't get
jail
answered.
works too.
Well, Freudian slip. And so what we do is we get the homeowners answers quickly. And what that also does, it improves homeowner satisfaction while reducing the workload on the HOA board or the community management company. Now they're able to do the things that are more important. right? So that's part of how our Karen AI, but we named it Karen because it's where you go if you have a suggestion for improvement. And normally what we see on Nextdoor are a lot of suggestions for improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is we want to siphon those, we want to direct those suggestions for improvement over to the right person so the
Yep.
community doesn't have to listen to that,
Yes.
because we don't
100%.
want to hear everybody's complaints. What we want is we want the good news. And so what we do is we bring in local news, we bring in local events so you know what's going on around you, and then you can come out and connect with other people that you want to do life with. And this is a big thing. I think since 2020, we're more connected than ever, and people feel more disconnected than ever. So
Yeah.
that's part of our mission. Creating unity through community is connecting people in a way that's never been done before. We call it community as a service. When we started our company, we were a software as a service
Yep.
company. We've evolved. We are now creating community as a service, which is a completely different new category of business.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, that seems like so okay. I'm a homeowner. I'm listening to this podcast right now. I hate my HOA. What can they do to maybe get the ball rolling and have them reach out to HOA.com?
Yeah, you'll if you go to HOA.com, you'll see that there's links for homeowners, for boards, for professionals, for realtors. We want the realtors to stand up and be the community champions because they want to win more listings than top HOAs. Well,
Mm-hmm.
great realtors farm local communities and they connect the community. So we help them do that. But for the homeowners, they can go to HOA.com and they can introduce us to their board and we can start the process and help everyone get connected.
I love that. Yeah, you said it best. We're more connected, but also more divided now than ever. And
Yeah.
it's very odd, but I think it comes back to this thing right here, right? I think this
Yes.
this is it's the key problem, but it's also great because you can connect with so many people, but then also if everything is just virtual, nothing's, real life in person, you lose that. And I always say, everyone likes to complain, about politics at the top. But I'm like, what's more important is like just the people in the community around you. You can make a lot more change there than you can worrying about, this massive country that is the United States. And it seems like we care less about the people that live right next to us versus the people we see on TV, right? It's very odd.
Well, and we have more in common than the people on TV or the people on social media would
Exactly.
have us realize, right? So when we focus on what unites us rather than what divides us, then we
Hmm.
have better conversations and people get heated about, differences of opinion, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, what? We want to raise our families
Yep.
in a safe environment. We want to play with our friends, have great meals, great experiences, and everybody wants the same thing: peace and prosperity.
Hmm.
So let's focus on building that and stop focusing on the negative.
I 100% agree. So, all right, let's get into one of the last things here. When Let's go back to referrals real quick. What
You bet.
is the biggest mistake people make when trying to get referrals? And what is the biggest thing that they can do when trying to get referrals?
The answer is the same to both those questions.
Yep.
Most people don't ask for referrals. Okay. They feel uncomfortable and awkward asking for referrals. And so, what we teach is the art of the ask.
Mhm.
And it's instead of waiting till the end when you've served a client to ask for referrals, we actually recommend you start from the beginning. There's 3 steps. Number one, set the stage. Number two, listen for the referral triggers. And then number three, you ask to GET. But it all starts when you set the stage. When you first have a client, let's say they decide to hire your marketing company. What you want to do before you let them out that door is say, thank you so much for trusting us and hiring us. We're so committed to helping your business thrive. And what I'd like to do is ask you for a favor. Once we really help you break through and create incredible results for your business, would it be okay if we ask you for referrals and a testimonial later on?
Okay. So you're
What do you
teeing
think
it
they'd
up.
say to that?
So you're teeing it up. You're not actually asking up front. You're just teeing it up for when we do the job that we say we're going to do. let's open it up to referrals. That makes a lot of sense. Interesting.
Once we've proven
Yeah.
ourselves to you, once
Yeah.
we've created a 5-star experience and you've seen what a great job we do, would it be okay? Have we earned the right to ask you for referrals later on? Okay. We're setting the stage up front. We're doing that for a few different reasons. Number one, we're planting seeds all throughout the process of serving them. It's on their mind. You've already asked, but you've sort of shaped it in the eyes of service rather than asking, you're giving. Okay. So now what happens is you're going to get some referrals at the beginning. They're going to say, you know what, now that you mention it, I have a client right now that I was having coffee this morning with a buddy that's looking for a marketing company. He could use you right now. So you're going to get some referrals at the beginning, but that's really not the point. The point is you get agreement at the beginning. Now you're listening for the referral triggers. Referral triggers are basically an expression of appreciation. Man, Eric, you guys do such a good job. Thank you so much. You've helped us make so much money, get so many clients, help so many people. Whatever your service is, lose weight, feel great, make money, save time, whatever it is that you deliver, you want to manufacture a wow. Ideally, they go, wow, man, you are the best. Okay. However, that is, you're listening for the referral triggers. They've just expressed their appreciation. They're at peak referral state. They've experienced your product. They've already agreed to refer you. Now they've just complimented you. And now you want to go into step 3, which is to ASK. Right? ASK to GET. And that's how my mentor taught it to me. So that's the way I say it. And it sounds like this. Eric, I'm so glad to hear you say that. Remember, we first started working together. I told you I was going to help you take your business to the next level. Well, now that we've accomplished that, I'm looking to help 2 or 3 other companies do the same. Right? Who do you work with? Who do you know? Do you have some clients maybe that we could come help them make more money? And in the process, most of those clients are going to come to you anyway. So this is really going to help boost your business even more. Who do you know that we could help? And in that process, again, you've teed it up at the beginning, you've proven yourself to them. They're in a peak referral state. Now you're asking at the right time in the right way where you feel comfortable and confident, and so do they. And that's when you open the referral floodgate.
Interesting. So I feel like I do step 2 and 3 pretty well, but I don't ever prime. I don't ever bring that up at the beginning. So that's a good point. I'm definitely going to change that because I mean, that question is going to be a yes 99% of the time. And if someone
100.
says no,
I've never had somebody say no.
Yeah.
100%.
if they did say no, you'd be like, why am I working with this person anyways?
Red flag.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, I've never had any of my students or clients get a no to that question.
Yeah, that's amazing. If you're listening to this right now, rewind this about 3 minutes and re-listen to what Brandon just said here, because that's great. All right. Before we get out of here, Brandon, tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, well, if you serve homeowners, then go to HOA.com and you should find a link that works for you. Or if you are a homeowner, you can do that too. And if you want to connect with me, you can go to BrandonBarnum.com. And if you're looking for more referrals, it's RavingReferrals.com. You can pick up one of our 4 books on Amazon's, of course, the original Raving Referrals. And then we have one for real estate agents, mortgage professionals, and dentists. So there you go.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. As always, this has been another St. Louis podcast episode. If you're watching live or later, please support us, like, comment, review, subscribe, share, do whatever it takes. Of course, as always, we record this at Half Coast Studios here in St. Louis. If you need help recording an episode, distributing it, editing it, etc., they could take care of you at halfcoaststudios.com. And of course, the best damn marketing company on the planet, Vi Media. You can check us out at vi.media. Brandon, once again, thank you for joining us today. That's all the time we have. We'll see you all next week. Bye.
Hey there, St. Louis podcast listeners. We've got some exciting news from our friends over at Farmers Insurance of St. Louis, led by the man, the myth, the legend, Mark Lee of Farmers Insurance. If you're looking for a job or to own your own business under a brand that everyone and their cousin is familiar with, Mark Lee with Farmers Insurance of St. Louis is recruiting insurance agency owners here in St. Louis for their Farmers Insurance Mentorship Program.
And as many of you are aware, Garrett and I have owned quite a few successful and award-winning businesses over the years. And in a past life, one of those was a farmers insurance agency out of Chesterfield, Missouri.
Eric and I know firsthand how hard it is to start a business under a brand that no one has heard of and convince consumers and businesses to trust that you're an authority figure in your industry.
And as many of you know, we own an award-winning marketing firm, Via Media, the one that Garrett was just discussing. And building that company's reputation literally took years. We're still building it to this day, and it's been 8 years in the making. However, with the Trusted Farmers Insurance Agency name on the building, we got started when we started our Farmers Insurance Agency. The trust was already built and has been for 96 years.
And if you can't do math, that means Farmers Insurance has been around since 1928. Luckily, you don't need to be a human calculator to get rich as an owner of your very own Farmers Insurance Agency.
Nope. All you have to do is reach out to the one and only Mark Lee, the leader of Farmers Insurance in the greater St. Louis metropolitan area.
That's right. So ensure he continues to sponsor our show and your favorite podcast, the St. Louis podcast, by quitting your job today and calling Mark Lee. I wouldn't even wait for him to answer your call. Call your boss now, quit, and become your very own business owner.
Visit insurancecareerstl.com. That is insurancecareerstl.com. Should we spell it out?
Yes. It would
INSURANCE, career, CAREER, STL.com, insurancecareerstl.com. Go there now. Back to the podcast.
And wait, insurancecareerstl.com.
Back to the podcast.